So I'm sure in a group this size that many of you have been there. Jean and I have been there on 2 occasions. Both times we had wanted a child. We had prayed for a child. We were very excited whenever we talked about having a baby. The first time the news came to us from Jean's physician when we were living in Durham, North Carolina, and I was in seminary at the time. It was the week between Christmas and New Year's in 1979. When the doctor said to Jean, "You're pregnant," we were thrilled. Our son Robbie was born on August 16, 1980. The second time, the news came from the adoption worker with whom we had been working at Children's Home Society in Fort Lauderdale. It was Friday afternoon of Labor Day weekend in 1982 when she called and said, "We have your daughter. We'd like for you to come on Tuesday morning to meet her and to take her home." As you can imagine, that seemed like a long time between Friday and Tuesday. But we did that, and we were thrilled. We brought 4-month-old Kimberly home on September 7th, 1982. Now, of course, it was a whole lot different for Mary and Joseph than it was for Jean and me. And it's much different than our experience was for many other folks as well. For Joseph and Mary and for others whom I've known over the years, it wasn't planned for, hoped for, prayed for. It just happened. And they had to deal with it. Surprise! And in Mary and Joseph's case, and in the case of others for whom it's happened that way, typically it is a heavy joy. In fact, one biblical commentator suggests that the predominant tone of Matthew's account is one of embarrassment. And it would have been embarrassing in that day. And until fairly recently, in our day. For Joseph and Mary, this child who would be born was an unexpected intrusion into their lives. And not only that, but this baby, this unexpected, unrequested intrusion was to be called Emmanuel, which literally means God with us. So what's the message here? You ever wonder about that? Why did God decide to come into the world as a baby? I wonder, could it be, at least in part, that when God is with us, it's not necessarily going to be in plan for, hopefully anticipated, eagerly awaited, non-disruptive ways? Could it be that God's advent among us may in fact be disruptive, may stir us up, may give us some unasked for, unanticipated yet compelling reasons to rearrange our priorities? It seems to me that during the seasons of Advent and Christmas, we tend to reduce the incarnation, that heady word that theologians use to describe the birth of God into the world as a baby named Jesus. We tend to reduce the incarnation at Bethlehem to a cutesy, sentimental, fluffy event. We sing, for example, Away in the Manger about this baby with what I find to be the hilarious line, "No crying he makes." Really? Who in the world ever heard of a baby that didn't cry anyway? But the truth is, I know, and many of you know from first-hand experience, the truth is that having a baby, even a wanted, planned for, hoped for, prayed for, eagerly anticipated baby, having a baby is a threatening, demanding experience. Along with all the sentimental, wonderful stuff, the birth of a baby into our lives also turns our lives upside down. It forces us to rearrange our priorities. It requires us to make what arguably is the strongest commitment that we have ever made. Could it be But that's why God came into the world as a baby. A small, fragile, vulnerable, disruptive, unexpected, threatening little baby. I would suggest that with the vulnerability of that baby comes that baby's claim upon us. It's because of her vulnerability, his dependence, her potential, that a baby demands a commitment that is unknown in the majority of human encounters. When we have a baby, it's a claim that exists not only because babies need us, but also because somewhere deep down within ourselves, we know that we need babies. I mean, think about it. Who do you know who is neutral in the presence of a baby? There seems to be some deep inner voice within us that tells us that babies are signs of human and divine creativity at their very best. They're a hopeful reminder of the openness of the future. I see it in the faces of folks in a congregation whenever I hold a baby up front for a baptism. I see folks smile. Frankly, even the more crotchety ones who tend not to smile very easily. You don't have any of those in this congregation, do you, Mark? I see necks craning in order to catch a better view. Hardly anyone I know remains untouched in the presence of God. There in that baby, the hopes and fears of all the years, as the song goes, are met by a God who comes into our life experience and claims us at the very same point at which we all began this journey that we call life. That is, as a baby. Think about it with me for a moment. Nothing is so helpless, so totally pain as human baby. How outrageous is the love of this God who has decided to meet us first as a helpless baby. How different that is from our typical notion of God as living off in the clouds somewhere, distant, aloof, abstract, ethereal, removed. Instead, here is, think about this with me, here is the God of the universe. Oh my gosh. The God who created the heavens and the earth in a smelly stable out back, wrapped in some pieces of cloth that I guarantee you weren't laundered before they were wrapped around him, and eating out of a container, or rather lying in a container, out of which cattle feed. And as that baby became a grown man, Jesus of Nazareth didn't walk around in a spotless white robe with a halo over his head and a glow around his face like we see in some historic art. Jesus was every bit of Palestinian Jew. He was, in many ways, an average guy. He was a blue-collar worker with calluses on his hands. The letter to the Hebrews tells us that inwardly Jesus was tempted in every way as we are. Think about that. He had the same struggles that you and I have. Had the same desires, the same drives, the same difficulties. There were times when he was lonely, deeply discouraged, frustrated. There were times when he was just downright tired, exhausted. He grieved. He felt pain. He suffered. He became angry. Through Jesus, God says to us, I've been where you are, and I'm with you now. I am not some distant God who has no way of firsthand understanding what you're going through because I'm so removed from it. I've been there. I'm with you in it now, whatever you're doing. The great and wonderful times of celebration and joy, and the deeply painful times within which we're not necessarily sure how we're going to move through. I came to earth. I entered human experience. I became and I lived a life of a human being, including experiences, pain, suffering, and death. I've committed myself completely to you, and I'm calling you as your response to that commitment, to commit yourself completely to me. I served years ago. In fact, I was privileged to be the founding pastor of Peace United Methodist Church in Hunters Creek, down other areas way south of Orange County, almost to Kissimmee. And for a number of years in the 1990s in Hunters Creek, in the Peace United Methodist Church, the lay folks offered what they called a breakfast with Santa. You know, churches have done that, maybe this church has done that. With folks gathered at the Coalition for the Homeless, the Women's Pavilion in downtown Orlando. There were children, teenagers, and adults from Peace Church who served a wonderful, full, hot breakfast for the women and their children, after which the children were treated to gifts that were delivered by Santa Claus, specific gifts that individually the children had requested. My kids and I participated together in this event each year. One year, after the gifts had been given out, I noticed across the room a young mother excitedly trying to open a wrapped gift that was being presented to her for her young baby. And she was doing that while she was holding the baby, trying to unwrap this gift. She was actually handling it amazingly well, but at best it was an awkward experience for her. So I went over to her, and ostensibly I often take the baby for her to help her out, but I also love holding babies, so I was glad to do that while the mom finished opening her gift. At one point, while holding this little girl in my arms, I happened to glance across the room directly at the face of my then 16-year-old daughter, who, by the way, now has a 16-year-old. She was sitting on the floor across the room, and as Kimberly's eyes met my eyes, and as she flashed for me one of her day brightening smiles, I felt overwhelmed in that moment by my sudden awareness, or maybe I should say my sudden reminder of how dramatically Kimberly had changed the course of my life since the first time I held her in my arms as a 4-month-old baby on September 7th, 1982. It just came over me because of the presence in my life of Kimberly and of her older brother, Robert. I have laughed more heartily and I have cried with more anger. I've been more filled with pride and more with fear. I've felt more self-confidence and assurance, more self-doubt and insecurity. I've gone to bed at night with a deeper sense of satisfaction, and I've stayed up late into the night with more worry in my heart. I've known joy at its highest peak and sadness in its lowest valley. I've had my priorities challenged and changed and challenged and changed more times than I possibly could count. I've claimed more memories of the past and conjured up more dreams for the future. I felt more internally the warmth of affirmation and the discomfort of judgment. I've both celebrated more and cursed more the various realities of life. I've offered more prayers of thanksgiving and prayed more for guidance and strength than I suspect I ever would have had I never held up babies in my arms and allowed them to be such an intimate part of my life. Why a baby? Do you remember that? But I wonder, and I invite you to wonder with me, could it be because God knows that no other relationship brings such joy, places such commitment, unabashedly calls for such commitment, so blatantly forces us to re-examine our lives and redefine what is really important. Could it be because God knows that no other relationship evokes such joy and so changes our lives? Could it be? Could it be? But all of that is why God chose to come into the world and into our lives. Thanks be to God.